It's a good problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless. Hi there, Mike Hall here. Welcome to the big show coming to you from Chicago. We're going to be out on site in Columbus plenty throughout the next 60 minutes as we've set our crew there. And it's a busy year in Columbus. First off, they're going to be celebrating the 100-year anniversary of Ohio Stadium. But second off, they had that 11-win Rose Bowl victory season that was not good enough. And that highlights the beginning of our storylines for OSU as we enter August. It's truly been an amazing run out there. 117 wins over the last 10 years. Only Alabama has more. Remember, that 117 includes a COVID-shortened season 2 years ago and 5 Big Ten titles in that time frame. But no Big Ten title last year. When they lost to Michigan and hence lost the Big Ten East, they snapped their run of 4 consecutive Big Ten championships. In fact, it was the first time since Ryan Day has taken the helm that the Buckeyes did not make it to the playoff. One major reason why was their defense. It was so bad they brought in a new defensive coordinator. Jim Knowles comes in from Oklahoma State, a team that last year was in the top 10 in the country in scoring defense, while Ohio State last year was barely in the top 40. And yet the offense looks so electric it might be enough to carry a D that doesn't even improve that much. QB C.J. Stroud is a Heisman candidate. Wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba is a Heisman candidate. Running back Travion Henderson is a Heisman candidate. AKA, they're going to score some points. Certainly scored points last season, more than 45 a game. No one in the country had more than that. Look at the yards. They averaged 561 per game, and they completed more than half their third downs. A lot of that credit goes to the QB C.J. Stroud, the man who gave a few minutes to our Howard Griffith on site.
Pleased to be joined by QB1, C.J. Stroud. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Good. Talk to me about just your maturation process from becoming the starter day one to where you are right now.
Right, yeah, it's definitely coming to this offseason is more comfortable for me. Just being named the starter already, and last year, I was still battling for the position, so around this time, I was kind of not even knowing, so now it's just more comfortable. Just being a leader of the team has definitely been more comfortable for me this year, just being my own type of person, and everybody's kind of been following along, so it's going really well.
From a preparation standpoint, how has it changed for you?
For a preparation standpoint, it's just been, everything kind of goes through me, like what I like and what I don't like. So, it's a positive. And then, I try to include my younger guys too, like Kyle and Devin, and ask them what they like too. So, I think honestly, it's just a total unit, but it does go through me, which I do like, and it is comfortable for me. So, it's going really well.
One of the things that happens as a quarterback when you can run around a little bit, extend plays, is people start to talk about the athleticism. But really, you have to be a real smart guy to be able to command this offense and be able to get your team in and out of bad plays and make sure that they're good. Talk about how you've grown in that area.
Right, yeah. For me, just this year, especially with Coach Knowles' defense, maybe just a smarter football player. I think last year, I definitely had some good plays with moving around and things like that, but I definitely could have did more. So this defense kind of gives me the opportunity to do that, to move around, because they're so active and you got to know what you got. And then for me, it's making me even smarter, checking the ball down when it's not there, not taking the bad plays or knowing the coverage right away. And for them, they run so many different things. So it just definitely made me just smart in and out of our offense into another defense. So.
Offensive line was beat up a little bit from a standpoint of being physical at the point of attack, not being able to necessarily run the ball when you wanted to run it. How have you seen them grow?
They've definitely just been stronger in the weight room, I say. I definitely think Coach Mick and his staff has definitely got the whole team stronger in D-line and O-line, so I think that's the edge that we needed. I think Coach Mick went back to some of his old ways in the offseason, so we really had a tough summer and winter, so which we needed, though, so you know what I mean? And I definitely think that when we run the ball, we will this year.
When you break the huddle, you kind of look out to the right, you look out to the left, look in the slot. An embarrassment of riches when you talk about that wide receiver, including the tight ends as well. What kind of comfort does that give you?
Like you said it, man. You go out, you live left and right, you got dogs. So I definitely think that it's positive for me, my confidence. And I definitely feel like whenever I throw the ball to somebody, they'll go up and get it. So, that's just comfortable with playing. And then we're just building chemistry. I know I didn't play with Marvin and Mac a lot last year and Julian, but, those are older veterans on the team now, just on their attitude and the way they approach every day with their work ethic.
Really a good running back group, top to bottom, really talented. Talk a little bit about those guys.
When I think of them, it's just like a 1-2 punch, really 3 with Evan. So they all balance each other out really well. I mean, Trey has done a tremendous job this offseason, just getting better, not only just physically but mentally as well. I mean, he knows our pass protections and different things like that, and has took it to his own to make it part of his game. And then mine has definitely done a great job of losing some weight, but he looks great. You know what I mean? I always thought he ran the ball really well, and he's so shifty to be that big. And then Evan's just pure speed, and he's done a really good job of getting in the weight room as well, getting bigger. I mean, actually, he was my weight room partners a couple times in my hard workouts, and I mean, he's really strong. So it's good to have that type of confidence in those 3 guys.
I know it's one game at a time you guys want to focus on, but when we look at this team and we talk about this team, it's really about winning national titles. What does the offense need to do from your perspective to be able to give yourself a chance to do that?
I mean, for me, I just think execute. I definitely think as an offense, we execute. I mean, the only time I feel like whenever we lose is when we beat ourselves. And, I mean, that's no shade to any other team, but it's just the truth, you know what I mean? So I definitely think whenever we play our best game and we just execute when it's time to execute in the red zone and on 3rd down and when it's hard, I definitely think that if we can be tough in those moments, then we'll be able to reach our goals and our dreams.
So thanks for taking the time. Good luck this season. Stay healthy.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Now, if you're curious, it's possible Stroud could set the all-time passing touchdown record in the conference. Going back to 1965, the record is 50 by Dwayne Haskins. And why should you feel Stroud could beat it? Because he's already on the list with 44 from last year, his first year ever playing in college. For more on OSU, we go back out to Columbus.
Jerry, just had a chance to watch Ohio State go through a practice stop number 7 along the way in our tour. By their standards, not a great year. I mean, they were the Rose Bowl champs, but did not make it to the Big Ten championship game, which they'd won the previous 4 years. Big picture impressions of what we saw as the Buckeyes look to bounce back.
Well, we say this every year we come here, right? I mean, the talent difference between Ohio State and most teams is pretty significant. So that's the first thing. And we also have to talk about what happened the day before and maybe what's happening the next day to put a practice in perspective. Yesterday they had a really long practice. Today they cut it back. But the interesting thing about shortening the practice is they still did all the drills that you would do in a long practice. They did inside drill. They did team. They did the individual stuff. So it wasn't as if they did different things. They just cut the time down. I talked to Coach Day about it before practice. We were at Rutgers, and one of the ways they develop their younger guys is they have the same drill going on in different places, and they use their young coaches. The way Ohio State develops their young people is they keep them out. So at the end of practice, we saw all the veterans go in, and then the coaches kept the young guys out and had their own little practice. So you always, regardless of where you coach, you want to develop your young guys during camp.
You mentioned the drills. You always love inside drill, but I think it is particularly telling here. This was an offensive line that was pretty good in pass protection, was not a great run-blocking team when they needed to be against the best opponents. Last year, they weren't as good at disrupting the run. I mean, we saw in the Michigan game, they had 0 tackles for loss in that game, which is kind of staggering. So inside drill, to me, would be a telling one. What did you see as you watched the offensive line and the defensive line go head-to-head?
Well, they've made a change in offensive line coach. Justin Fry, who played at Indiana, it was at UCLA. He's got a great background. I think he's developing that line. You talk to some of the coaches that have been around here a little bit longer than Justin has. They think this is the most athletic offensive line they've had. So the talent's there. Part of it's play calling. I think Ryan Day would say, I've got to do a better job mixing the run in, and maybe we have to do a better job practicing. On defense, I think defense is a little different story. I think this transition with Jim Knowles on defense is going to be difficult. I think it's going to be significant. It's a new scheme. They open up with Notre Dame. It's not like they play someone that they could, push around and make some mistakes and still win the game. So the D line's one of the strengths of the defenses, but it's a new scheme, and it's got to be ready pretty quick.
And it needed to be a new scheme, and they gave up 40 or more points in consecutive games, last 2 games, first time that had ever happened in school history. Give people a sense for what you were able to glean about this scheme and what we should expect.
It's pretty aggressive. It's a scheme that wants to force big plays. Maybe it'll take more risks than a lot of defenses. I think it'll take some time for them to marry the defense with the offense. If the offense is real explosive, the last thing you want to do on defense is give the opponent explosive plays. Your offense is going to score, make the offense gain ground grudgingly. You don't really need to take a lot of risks. So I think Jim Knowles, again, he came from Oklahoma State. You know, as you said, winning the Rose Bowl and losing only 2 games isn't success here. So he's going to find that success is pretty demanding with the defensive side of the ball.
It was interesting to hear him say, though, that he embraces the expectations. So the expectation is to win right off the bat. They've got a tough one, as you said, against Notre Dame.
One of the main struggles with Ohio State last year was when they faced good teams, their defense really struggled. 5 times last year they faced a ranked opponent. They allowed more than 30 points a game in those contests. Nearly 415 yards per game allowed. It's why they brought in new defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, who chatted with Jerry DiNardo.
Coach, you're new to Ohio State. What have you enjoyed the most about being here?
The resources. You know, I mean, I think as a coach who's kind of worked himself up the ranks of college football, you finally get to that place where, you know, there are no excuses. You get whatever you need to win, and the expectations. You know, here you're expected to win, and I think as a coach, that drives you, that fuels you.
There's a reason you're here as defensive coordinator. That was a problem for Ohio State last few years. What's your defensive philosophy in fan terms?
You know, really, I don't want the fans to know what defense we're in before the snap. So that would be a good way to describe it, is we want to be simple but multiple, and really so that the offense and the offensive coordinator, that, you know, the way it is nowadays in college football, the offensive coordinators are making all the calls. So I think as a defense, you need to have great disguise, and be able to attack from all angles, and you really need to be able to do it at a fast pace. So if I'm a fan looking at it, I want to see people in the right position, but not exactly knowing what's going to happen at the snap of the ball.
It's fair to say not many teams have the talent that you'll have on defense. Does that do anything to your philosophy?
I think so. I think as you get down to the game, you want to make sure that you're utilizing that talent and not relying too much on scheme. You know, I mean, everywhere else I've been, you want to make sure the players have enough to win the ball game. Here, you want to make sure that they just know what to do and they can play fast.
Defensive coaches have responded to the spread. Everyone's running a spread team. How many players would you think you'd play in a game?
You know, it starts up front. I believe, and we have the depth here to play 8 to 10 guys every game. Those are the guys you want fresh to be able to rotate in. But I'm not looking to play many linebackers when it comes down to it, because there's a flow of the game that they need to get into, and DB. So, you know, to me, in that back end linebacker DB, you always want to have one extra at every position that you're rotating in, just to keep guys fresh.
The best defenses usually have really good leadership. Who are some of your leaders?
You know, we have Tommy Eichenberg at the Mike linebacker position. That's always critical. And Ronnie Hickman at our adjuster spot, which is essentially the free safety. You know, those guys are the quarterbacks of the defense. And then up front, I mean, you name it. I mean, we have players with experience who know how to win, know what it takes to win. You know, Teron Vincent and Zach Harrison and, you know, Jack Sawyer, all these guys that are talented but also are committed, and they understand what it takes.
Appreciate your time, Coach. Have a great year.
Thank you.
Well, let's look at the Buckeye schedule. It sure starts out with an awful lot of home games, doesn't it? In fact, it starts off with a bang. Notre Dame right away. They went 11-2 last year, finishing the top 10. October has at MSU and at Penn State, and the big finale, Michigan, back home in the shoe. Let's go back out now, check in with Howard and Joshua.
All right, Howard, we just finished up at Ohio State's practice. One of the things that we love to do as we walk out to the field is to do the eye test. What'd you think today?
Well, I think every time we come here, and you know, as a former player here, I mean, there's great athletes all over the place. You know, their number threes could be starters at other places, but this is a team, to me, coming into this particular training camp, that really was beat up a little bit. I think you talk about having to go through a tough off season.
Yes.
I know that was one of the things they had to go through, and this is a team I think that's hungry, because they've been criticized, whether they're being tough enough up front, not being able to get things done on the defensive side. This is a team I believe that's motivated to go out and really be able to compete at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the eye test and everything is there. And one of the things I was generally curious about is the same thing as we go to these schools is what do they look like in the trenches? And I think that might be the biggest differentiator between Ohio State and other Big Big Ten schools is they've got more developed bodies. Guys are a little bit more nimble and athletic up front. But, you know, that translates over into one of the questions on defense. There's a new scheme in there. Obviously, people are wondering about that. But the other thing folks talk about is, where is that pass rusher? Do they have a guy like a Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Chase Young? And I'm not exactly sure that they have those guys, but they're getting pretty close in some of the young players. They have Jack Sawyer, JTT, two guys that can really play ball.
Yeah, they can get after it. And remember, what's tough, right? We're comparing them to guys that were drafted in top 5 picks.
Right.
3 guys, right, that you know, having great NFL careers at this particular point, but they still have to be able to develop those guys. Those guys have to be able to show up, and I think the young guys, as you mentioned, are going to be the ones that are going to be able to have that opportunity to go up and make a bunch of plays. When you have that defensive lineman that can get after the quarterback, can really force double teams a lot, that's going to help the linebacker group out and also help the guys out in the secondary, which to me, I really love the secondary. They have the length, they have the ability to cover, and they're going to have a lot of things that are going to be on top of them getting a new scheme involved.
Yeah, and I mean, the secondary to me is going to be critical. Everybody keeps saying this is a safety-driven defense, and those guys look pretty good today, but you skipped right on over the linebackers, which, you know, hurts my feelings.
But I wanted to lay it up there for you, because
well,
that's your expertise.
There's the layup for me. No, that position has improved as well, and I think part of their process last year was being young, but they didn't want to use that as an excuse. This year they're confident, they're lined up, they're commanding the defense, which I really do believe is important. Now, I don't want to overshadow what's going on the offensive side of the ball, because we know the collection of talent and players that they have right there. As you start to look at this, is there something on the offense that gives you any pause that says maybe they need to do X better?
Well, I think if they can run the ball whenever they want to run the ball, I think that's where the key is for them. And it's no question. You look at the wide receiver group, it's an embarrassment of riches, right? You look at the way CJ has developed as a quarterback. He really has a great command. Things have really slowed down for him. So he knows where to go exactly with the football. I think it's going to be up front. That's where it all comes down to. They have the bodies up there. They are unbelievably physical up there. But it's about being able to take over the game when they need to. And you know, as I know, when we talk a lot about this when we're traveling, sometimes it's about the plays that are being called. So that's going to be one of the processes that we're going to have to continue to watch, and we're going to know early, because they're going to face a stiff defensive front in Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's defense is certainly going to be good this year, defensive-minded head coach as well. But that running back room, I mean, the talent that exists there is so good. So I agree with you that it's going to be on the offensive line, and typically – you're not as good pass protecting as you are run blocking coming in. It seems like it was a little bit opposite for Ohio State a year ago. So certainly something we'll keep our eyes on. But like you said, really good players everywhere else on that offense. You got a chance to be extremely explosive, but that wraps it up here in Columbus.
Thank you, gentlemen. Meanwhile, the team OSU lost to last year in the 117th edition of The Game was Michigan, the squad that won the Big Ten and made the playoff. The Wolverines lost a lot of talent, but they do indeed have some talent still there in Ann Arbor. Here are some of those guys.
It's going great. Coach Harbaugh has been emphasizing that we're a lot further on than we were last year. So I like what he's saying, and I feel what he's saying. I feel like now that we're year 2 into this defense, we know it, the ins and outs of it, how to communicate, how to match personnel, how to match formations, and how to coordinate the scheme properly.
We want to make this better than last year, so how can we do that? And it's been zeroing in on the little things, and we started doing that through the summer just with how we aligned our shoes and everything, and stuff like that. So in practice, making sure that we're doing things that we can do better this year than last year that can make us that much better this year. Everybody is hungrier too, you can tell.
Everybody, especially me, just was really sick after we lost that Michigan State game. Obviously, we want that one. We want to build off Ohio State again, but the Big Ten championship's great, but that Georgia game left a terrible taste in our mouths that we don't want to happen again.
9 overtimes, not enough for Penn State to beat Illinois last year. 20-18 your final score there. It was week 8 of the season, and the Nittany Lions were coming off a bye, while Illinois entered 2-5 on the season. It's one of many close losses for Penn State last year. And you could argue that game was the low point of the season for the Nittany Lions. Remember, they opened the year winning all 5 of their first 5 games and were ranked as high as number 4 in the country. Yeah, by the time things were all said and done, they were just one game above 500. This year, they bring back Sean Clifford as the quarterback. It's his 6th year in college, 4th year as the starter, and 24th year on the planet. His production last year was pretty good, but he talked to Howard about how he wants more than pretty good.
Pleased to be joined by the starting quarterback, Sean Clifford. How was practice today from a standpoint of execution?
Yeah, I thought that, we executed pretty well as an offense up until that red zone period at the end. I thought that, it starts with myself, missed a couple throws, just need to, getting a little bit different protections, but realistically, we had a really good day, really excited about, the 8 practices that we've had so far, and closer and closer to the season, so really excited.
Really comfortable now in this offense. You really look like you have a great command of it when you're out there, really communicating with your teammates as well.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's something that I've grinded all off season with Coach Yursich, being able to have him trust me with the checks, with the reads, with making adjustments in the plays, outside of the plays, making, talking to the guys outside in the locker room. It's all about that communication piece, and, that second year in the offense, I've never had that before, and it's paying dividends right now for sure.
I saw a lot of young wide receivers, or even not necessarily young, but wide receivers who really hadn't had to count on. Talk a little bit about those guys and the impact they're going to be able to have for the pass game.
Yeah, I think that, you start with those 3 at the top, Mitch Tinsley, Parker Washington, and then Keandre Lambert-Smith. Those 3 guys have really taken a step and really commanded that room from the winter all to the summer, all the way now to the fall. So, it starts with them, but you go down the list: Malik Mega, Trey Wallace, Shaden Dott, my brother. We have some really good talent, and then even young guys, Amari Evans stepping up and making plays, guys across the board I'm really excited about for the future, but also, for the present. I think that we have a lot of help at wide receiver.
There's been a lot of emphasis during the spring and also during this camp about you guys being able to run the ball and being able to do that more consistently. How's the offensive line coming along in that area?
I'm super proud of those guys. My offensive line, that's where it starts. It starts up front, starts in the trenches. I think that, adding Hunter Norzend at guard, my roommate, so excited from a transfer perspective. But the 5 guys that we have right now in the starting lineup: Olu Fashanu, Juice Scruggs holding it down, Caden Wallace, Sal Wormley, Landon Tangwall, all those guys really making some plays. Lots of effort too, finishing blocks. Excited from a quarterback perspective.
I'm not going to let you get out of here without talking about the true freshman running backs. I know the veterans are there, but a lot of anticipation about what those young guys can bring to the team.
Absolutely. It starts with the vets. They lead the group. Kevon Lee, Devin Ford, Keziah Holmes, those guys you can't get enough credit to. But at the same time, like you said, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, those guys they're coming. They're going to be fantastic on Thursday. I'm really excited with their progression. I think that they've both made steps, not only on the field physically, but mentally too, from spring to now summer and now fall. Really excited.
Well, great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Have a great season.
Appreciate it.
Our guys were at Maryland not long ago, and one thing they talked about was the Terps' defense. Last year, Maryland allowed almost 40 points per Big Ten Conference game, worst in the league. How can they fix that? Joshua talked with one man who can make a big difference. Defensive back Tarheeb Still.
Pleased to be joined by Tarheeb Still, a defensive back here at Maryland. And looking at your side of the football, at the end of the year, you made some changes at defensive coordinator with Coach Williams, played really well in the last 2 games, and it seems like you have continued that trend early on in training camp. What has that transition been like with him as a play caller, and where do you think the defense has grown the most?
Well, really, the transition been great. Having him in the front of the room, guys really want to play for him, and guys go hard every day, and he brings the energy to the room. So guys just motivated every day to get after it. I think really all groups really come together, really taking on the challenge that he presented for us. So I feel like it's going to be good.
Now, Tarheeb, you are a veteran guy. You've played a lot of football here, and you've got some guys on the roster, whether incoming freshmen or transfers, that are a little bit new to Maryland football. What kind of responsibility is on you as a leader to make sure that they're ready to go every day?
Well, big responsibility, because I'm a guy that's been here. I've been through it. I know what it's like. So they can just rely on me for experience, and then come to me for other things like the play call and stuff like that. Any questions they have, I could be a guy or a resource that they could come to as an outlet,
Now, as a defensive back, you're matched up against those really good offensive weapons that you have day in and day out. How much of a benefit is it to have really good guys that can sharpen as iron sharpens iron?
It's actually really good. Going against those guys, we're going to get good work preparing each week for games, and then you get to work different stuff. We got speed, we got size, we got strength, so it's just really good going against those guys every day because they get us better and we get them better.
Coach Loxley talked about how the locker room is now policing itself. In your time here at Maryland, how have you seen this program kind of evolve and change?
Oh, I've seen it go up in the upward trend in a really good direction because guys take accountability. It's a player-driven team. You know, guys, it's really team leadership. So guys pushing other guys. It's not really a lot of coaches having to tell guys to do stuff. You know, it's really the players policing the other players, holding them accountable, holding up to the standards and stuff like that. You could tell it's changed.
I'll get you out of here on this question, but there's a lot of talent running through this program right now, and it feels like this is a moment where you can really take another step forward. Where do you see the ceiling of this Maryland program?
Well, we can go as far as anybody can go, you know. I just feel as that if we stay consistent, stay disciplined, take it game by game, week by week, we can really do a lot of things.
All right, appreciate your time and good luck this season.
Thank you.
That Buckeye defense last year gave up too many points. We know that. But they did a few things rather well. Third in the league in sacks, a pretty good amount of takeaways, and they sure have some talented guys there, like defensive back Ronnie Hickman. He was second team All Big Ten last year, and we had a little chat with Joshua.
Pleased to be joined by Ronnie Hickman, safety here at Ohio State, wearing a white sweatsuit, something I couldn't get when I was a player here, but I want to touch on last year real quick. Things didn't go the way that you wanted them to throughout the offseason, in the spring, and here in the training camp. What kind of pressure have you put on the team as a leader to make sure that outcome doesn't happen again?
Things got to be extremely hard. You know, we got to get used to being comfortable in those uncomfortable positions. You know, it's a lot of guys out there who's out there for the first time. So luckily they're coming back with a little bit more experience and they're able to tell the other guys who weren't out there. But like I said before, we got to get comfortable when things are hard, things are tough.
Now, changes have come on the defensive side of the ball. You're in a new scheme under defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. What are some of the biggest differences that you've seen out there, and how far along do you think you are at this point within the scheme?
How fast the guys are picking it up, how fast we're playing. Seeing guys make plays that, you know, we might not have made last year just due to the call or whatever the case may be, but I like how fast the defense is moving, whether that's D-line to the linebackers to us.
Now, specifically in the back end, we see a lot of the safety movement out there. I mean, you guys are looking really good. As a group, what is your mentality that you take out to the football field every day?
Coach Knowles has made it very clear to us it's a safety-driven defense. We got to communicate. We got to be able to fill the alley, close the middle of the field, and, you know, help our corners out as well. We have a big responsibility, but we take it with pride.
In terms of the defensive line, I know that was a position that people wanted to see a little bit more production out of. Watching practice, it seems like you guys are going to be really chaotic up there. What kind of confidence do you get from watching the D-line go up there and work?
It's crazy because the depth is kind of the thing that sticks out to me. Like, you look at the first guys who go out there, and it's like, those guys are crazy. You look at the second group that goes out there, it's like, those guys are crazy. They're feeling the run. So just to see the depth and know that, you know, it's going to be long games. You know, we're going to need to rotate guys, and being comfortable with the next group that comes in is huge for the secondary, as you know. So just to see those guys go out there and eat is huge.
Now, you get good work every day in practice going up against your offense. CJ Stroud back there. At quarterback, the wide receiver group's really good, and some running backs coming downhill at you too. What type of benefit is it to know that you're going to get the best work out there going against an offense with that type of firepower?
It just kind of gives you that extra boost of confidence, you know, come Saturday. Come September, when the lights are on, you know, you look back and you say, you know, I've been dealing with this. I've been working with these guys, the best of the best, every day in practice. You know, it prepares you for September, and, you know, it gives you that extra confidence.
Now, I'll get you out of here on this question. When people flip on the tape this year and they watch the Ohio State defense, what do you want them to say?
That's a fast, tough, physical defense. That's it.
Simple. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, man.
34 wins in 3 years. Not bad, especially for a first-time head coach. In that time span, only one loss to a Big Ten team. One. Also not bad. But as Ryan Day has made abundantly clear in this offseason, not bad is not good enough. Certainly not for him and for the people in that state. Dave is in Ohio and was able to catch up with the head man.
Ryan, really impressive practice today. How would you assess where your team is at this point in camp?
I mean, it's really the first grind week that we've had, and I've been impressed with the energy. I think our pads have been down. We're really working in heavy fundamental area and technique. This is a really important part of that. We're not in two-a-days anymore. So this week is very, very important to get after each other, stay healthy, but really work to, you know, iron sharpens iron is the idea, you know, and that these guys got to understand how to take care of each other but get each other better. You know, I think right now it's a good start.
One thing that's notable, I think, versus some other camps we've been to in previous years here is there aren't a ton of position battles. It doesn't feel like, at least from the outside. How does that change things when you have a pretty good sense of who slots where?
Well, I think, we're installing a new defense, so that's significant. But compared to the team we had last year, there's just much more experience coming back. And certainly coming off the Rose Bowl, almost the entire team is back. So there's a lot more experience. It doesn't really change things other than it's just a different team. And every time you have a different team, it's a different journey, a different feel, and a different dynamic. But we know, in the first game, we got to come out of the gates playing well.
You mentioned installing a new defense. You have a new defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles. What made him the right fit for your D?
Well, Jim's somebody who comes with great experience, somebody who's had success, throughout his college career. And just the way that he teaches, the way that he understands the games, intelligence levels off the charts. He really connects well with the players, really like his scheme, but still, really spends a long time on fundamentals, technique, and because at the end of the day, that's what's going to win.
What is the difference between when you're installing a new defense, kind of what happens in the spring in terms of the installation versus what happens in the fall? Give us a sense of that progression.
Well, it depends. Our guys have done a nice job being able to handle a bunch of the installation. So you put a bunch of the installation in, but again, heavy emphasis on fundamentals. And then you come back through the summer, kind of paint the bridge again. And then as you get into the preseason, now you're back on the field and you're working through it again. So the more times you can go through it, the better the guys will have a feel for it.
On the offensive side of the ball, you set a Big Ten record for the most yards per game. You led the nation in yards per play. It was a really good offense. I think if there was one area maybe that you've expressed that you wish would have been a little bit different, it was when you needed to run it, you weren't always able to run it. Where do you feel like you are in that?
Yeah, those two games that we had, those were the things that came up, and so we got to have great balance. We did, statistically, but we got to do a good job in short yardage and got to do a good job in a red zone. So the emphasis has been on pad level and moving guys and being able to run the football, but still having great balance. Working on that on both sides of the football.
Young guys that have stood out to you?
Again, I always run the risk of picking somebody out and I'll forget somebody else. I'll forget somebody else. We have a fairly young but experienced team. So, across the board, I think guys are competing. We get a chance to scrimmage in the stadium on Saturday. So coming out of that, we'll get some champion grades and see where everybody's at.
Okay. You start with Notre Dame. A huge game, obviously, right out of the gate. How does that kind of change the approach in camp when you are playing an elite team from the get-go?
Well, last year we came out of the gate with a conference game Thursday night at Minnesota with an experienced team. So it's not going to change much on how we approach the game because then we came right back and had Oregon. So we had to play our best football early on and continue that throughout the season. That's going to continue this year. That's been the message is competitive stamina. So we have to be on point. Every period has to matter. Every minute has to matter. And we have to be game ready. So, scrimmages are going to be important. Tackling is going to be important. And really maximizing the entire day.
Biggest questions you need answered between now and that opener?
I don't think there's one. I just think overall across the board, we just need to continually work on fundamentals, continually work on pad level, playing well, and then as we get closer to the game, we'll start the game plan Notre Dame. But right now, it's about everybody on that field getting each other better on both sides of the ball.
Head coach of the Buckeyes, Ryan Day. Thanks a lot for your time, Coach.
You got it, man.
Day and the Buckeyes are sitting on 39 Big Ten titles all time, only behind the rival Michigan, who tops the list with 43. FYI, in the Big Ten football title game era, OSU has 5, and nobody else has more than 2.